Hello, I'm Clark Crawford, and welcome to Clark Crawford Sports. Today, I'm going to be giving you a Houston Astros offseason review. So before I get into my offseason review, please hit the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on how the Astros offseason has gone, and with some possible sleepers from the minor leagues have the potential to maybe steal one of the last roster spots on the open day roster, or guys who will start out this year in the minor leagues that have a chance to make their MLB debut in 2024. Let's get started. So since I last spoke about the Astros, I gave you my Astros season review, which you should go check out in my previous videos on my channel. And with football coming to a close, with the Super Bowl being next Sunday, not this upcoming Sunday, I decided to do an Astros offseason review and kind of their preview for their 2024 season. So what better week to give you some baseball talk with football on pause for a week. So with all that coming into play, here's my Astros offseason review. Notable subtractions from the team is where I'm going to start. Include Michael Brantley, who retired from baseball. Thank you, Uncle Mike, for your service. You were great in Houston for the few years you were here, and we appreciate everything you did. The next subtraction is Martin Maldonado, who signed a one-year deal with the Chicago White Sox. I'm not a fan of Martin Maldonado. I was not the last couple of years he was here. I know some people have other feelings about him, but as far as I'm concerned, let the door hit him on the way out. I'm glad he's gone. Now, next up is Hector Neris, who signed a one-year contract with the Chicago Cubs in the last couple of weeks. I'll get back to Hector Neris here in a second. I have some other thoughts. But quickly, we have Ryan Stanek, who's still a free agent. Technically a potential he could come back, make his way back to Houston, but as of right now, he's still a free agent. And lastly, we have Phil Maton. Phil Maton's also a free agent. Just like Ryan Stanek, they remain unsigned for the time being. I expect them to likely get contracts before opening day and be on one of the 30 MLB teams roster. As for Hector Neris, who I mentioned, I understand a ton of Astros fans would have loved to see him come back for another year or 2 years under a similar contract to what the Astros had him under. He was making about $8.5 million over the past 2 seasons he was in Houston. But I'm here to give you the facts of why Neris is no longer in Houston. Obviously, he declined his player option. That's number one. And number two, the Astros did not re-sign Hector Neris because of this. Hector Neris' fastball over the last couple of years in Houston has dropped on average by about 1 mile an hour per year, which is significant for a relief pitcher because, number one, Hector Neris is now 35. And when you start to hit your mid-30s, if pitchers even survive that long, you typically see some regression. With Neris' fastball averaging 1 mile an hour dip on his fastball the last couple of years, his fastball was only topping out just over 93 miles an hour, which is, in this day and age, most relievers throw 95 plus. So I think that's going to be significant for Neris this upcoming year. Now, I think Hector Neris has one, maybe two more quality top-end level, maybe not quite elite level as he was this past year with the Astros, but I think there's a high percentage chance that Neris' best days are behind him. Like I said, I think he has 1 or 2 more quality years left, but it was also being reported that Hector Neris was seeking a 3-year, $50 million contract, and maybe Neris could get that if he had the season he had when he was 28 coming into free agency, but not when you're 35 years old. That is absurd. Every team was smart not to pay him that. Now, also a notable thing that happened this offseason, an unexpected loss for the season a few weeks ago, as it was announced Kendall Graveman had offseason shoulder surgery and will miss the entire 2024 season. A quick reminder, Kendall Graveman was acquired at the 2023 trade deadline for catching prospect Corey Lee. Not too many subtractions from the 2023 team to the upcoming 2024 team, but some names that need to be replaced for the Astros to hopefully what, in their minds, is their 3rd World Series title in franchise history. Let's go through the additions the Astros have made since ending the season in Game 7 of ALCS, where unfortunately they got blown out. But anyways, let's put that behind us. First move of the offseason was they acquired right-handed pitcher Dylan Coleman from the Kansas City Royals in exchange for right-hander Carlos Mateo. Coleman is a 27-year-old right-handed reliever, and he spent parts of 3 seasons in the major leagues. Not a whole ton of experience, but his career ERA is .338 and less than 100 innings pitched. But his 2023 ERA was .884. That's a bit alarming for a high ERA. Only pitched 18 1/3 innings, though, in 2023. So the team is hoping that they're buying low on his previous success back in 2022, where he pitched a career-high innings, and they're really trying to buy low on cheap relief pitching to replace some of the relievers they've lost. They lost a total of 4 relievers, counting Kendall Graveman, so the offseason is probably likely done, and as far as we're concerned, they're probably going to look to internal options, which I'll get to later in the video, to fill the current bullpen voids that I believe that they have. Except for the offseason moves, and I'm not going to go through every offseason move. There are a couple players acquired through waivers and whatnot, but I'm going through the most notable offseason moves, guys that are likely or definitely going to be a part of the Astros team in 2024. There are a couple of waiver additions, but I don't see them as significant enough additions to go through because there were like 5 or 6 waiver additions, and it's like, well, are they really going to be on the roster? Probably not. They're just kind of buy low moves, likely just going to be minor league players. So next up for the offseason moves, we have a new backup catcher behind now starter Yainer Diaz, who GM Dana Brown is a big fan of, and the backup catcher is Victor Caratini. For his career, Caratini is a .236 hitter, and in 2023 he hit .259, a significant upgrade over former starting catcher on this team, Martin Maldonado, and he's a solid backup to Yainer Diaz. Martin Maldonado had a massive negative impact on the everyday lineup this past year, as he was such a negative player, it was an abomination to play him. But if you want to message me or whatever, if you don't already know me, I was not a big fan of Martin Maldonado ever, but that's another topic for another day. If you want to hit me up on Twitter or have a chat with me here on YouTube, you can, and I'll tell you how much I don't like Martin Maldonado. But anyways, Victor Caratini, to be a success in Houston and just be better than Martin Maldonado, that's just the baseline. All he needs to do is hit the Mendoza line, which is a 200 average, to be better than Martin Maldonado was for his entire stint in Houston as an offensive player. Not a high bar to achieve. Hopefully he'll be able to do that, and Yainer Diaz should be a much better offensive addition to the everyday lineup than Martin Maldonado is. He may struggle at times in his sophomore season, but there's no chance, no way, no how he's worse than Martin Maldonado, and same goes for Victor Caratini. So, with that being said, Houston has an upgrade there to their everyday lineup. The unexpected big-name free agent signing of the offseason was less than 2 weeks ago when closer Josh Hader signed a 5-year, $95 million contract with the Astros. This was unexpected because this puts the Astros over the luxury tax threshold, which is something Jim Crane is not accustomed to doing. And if you know Astros owner Jim Crane, there's only one other season the Astros were over the luxury tax since Jim Crane took over 10-plus years ago in the Astros organization, and that was the COVID 2020 season when the luxury tax really didn't matter because there was no offenders in the tax, and it was a break year. Astros' hand was forced because of the Kendall Graveman injury, that the Astros had a massive hole in the bullpen because they were expecting Graveman to have probably a 6th, 7th, sometimes an 8th inning role if guys aren't available. So the Astros said, well, you know what? We're putting all the chips towards the center of the table, and they signed the 29-year-old left-handed pitcher in the prime of his career, who has 190 career saves, and that's Josh Hader. What a heck of a move, and we'll find out if he was worth every penny. I think it's a good move because he's in the prime of his career, but it's a 5-year deal, and anytime it's more than a 2 or 3 year deal, it can be risky, but I think it's a great move, and it's the Astros' big move this offseason, and like I said, it was unexpected. I'm a big fan of the move, and I hope it works out for my Astros. Lastly, for notable offseason moves, this move happened a few days ago, as I mentioned, I'm recording this video on Friday, February 2nd. The Astros traded with the Angels, and they acquired utility player Trey Cabbage in exchange for right-handed pitcher Carlos Espinosa. GM Dana Brown has been looking for a left-handed bat, and he found a cheap option in Trey Cabbage. Now, Cabbage is 26, and he made his MLB debut in 2023 for the Angels. He has 53 career at-bats under his belt, which is a small sample size, but here's why the Astros like him. Now, Cabbage is 26, but in 2023, Cabbage hit 30 home runs while driving in 89 runs at AAA for the Angels last season. In a bonus along with that, he stole 32 bases. So if Cabbage makes the opening day roster, or he's any part of the Astros in 2024, well, the Astros were bottom 10 in the league in stolen bases, so that's a plus. He could provide some speed. And also, they're hoping, say he played 60, 70 games, they're hoping for 10, 12 homers out of him. Cabbage could have some sleeper pop in his bat, so he could be a nice welcome under-the-table move for the Astros in 2024. We'll see if Cabbage can make any kind of impact for the Astros. Another signing happens before spring training begins in about 2 weeks. Some clubs less than 2 weeks. It is unlikely the Astros make another offseason move. It's unexpected, but we'll see. My thoughts are it was a quiet offseason for the most part, but at the same time, the Astros did not need to go out and make a ton of big splashes, as some teams do, because this team was already a top 5 World Series contender for the 2024 season, and a lot of people have the Astros as American League favorites. Now, the few small moves that they made, and also the one big move with Josh Hader, along with these subtractions, I'm giving the Astros a B+ for their offseason grade. They made a couple of under the table, under the radar moves, acquiring a couple of players off of waivers, cheap additions that could make, or what they're hoping to make, significant impacts to their club. Maybe Dylan Coleman makes a nice impact, maybe Trey Cabbage. But also they have some internal options that they're hoping are more of sleeper options to really surprise teams coming into the 2024 season. So like I said, the Astros get a B+ with their offseason. It was quiet, but the Hader addition, the unexpected Hader addition, puts it over the top and gives them, in my mind, a B+, raising the bar for the 2024 expectation. For potential guys to watch who could additionally steal one of the last roster spots, there's a couple of potential bullpen spots up for grabs, as they're at least not set in stone, or maybe the last bench spot. Here are a few guys to watch who are in the minors who have a spring training invite, and you never know. Corey Julks made the team that not too many people expected to make the team last year, so there's always potential for somebody to steal a roster spot if they make a significant impact in spring training. So here are my list of guys who, if they don't make it out of spring training, they could get a potential call-up and make a name for themselves in 2024, as the Astros have had plenty of impactful rookies over the past 5, 6, 7 years. Unexpected names that teams didn't know too much about, and they made significant contributions to the team, most notably last year, J.P. France. So here's my list of guys right here, right now. My list of guys starts with utility player Pedro Leon. He's been in the system for what feels like 10 years at this point. It'd be finally nice to hear his name on the MLB level make his impact. Astros paid him a lot of money to bring him over as an international free agent signing way back in 2021. So he's been in the minors several years. He's in his mid-20s now. I think this year is now or never for Pedro Leon. Next, we have Shea Whitcomb. If you're not familiar with Shea Whitcomb, well, it's a good thing you're watching this video because I am. Shea Whitcomb climbed the system last year all the way up to AAA in 2023. He's 25 years old, is a utility infielder, and he had a breakout 2023 season where he hit 35 combined home runs in AA and AAA. I believe Whitcomb, if he has a hot spring, and guys like Gray Kessinger or John Singleton, guys who are likely to make the roster, who were on the roster at the end of last season in the postseason, if he has a great spring and continues to progress, and guys that I mentioned, Singleton and Kessinger, struggle, who I believe are expected to make the opening day roster. I believe he could push them for the final roster spot out of spring training or even by his latest midseason. Shea Whitcomb, as I said, is a utility infielder, and I'm excited about his progress from last season, and I hope he continues to progress, and I'd love to see him in an Astros uniform in 2024. Gordon, a left-handed pitcher, and like Whitcomb, he climbed the system all the way to AAA from AA last season, as well as he made it in 2023. Gordon, as I mentioned, he's a Gordon is a 25-year-old left-handed pitcher, and I believe Gordon, his probably highest potential is going to be as a back-end kind of rotation guy, or even for the Astros if they want to make a splash at the trade deadline. If Gordon has a good season, I could see him being leveraged as one of the names in a potential big blockbuster trade. More prospects left in my off-season review, and that brings me to outfielder / first baseman Joey Loperfido. Loperfido ended the season, like many of the guys on this list, in AAA. He's 24 years old, who hit 25 homers in the minors last year, scattered throughout several systems. And if he begins the season hot out of the gate, which I think it's 99% likely he starts at AAA, and he's a first baseman / outfielder, and I believe we see him sooner rather than later, especially if John Singleton makes the opening day roster. Singleton is really a 4A player, as a lot of MLB people, as myself, I like to use the term. He's more of a guy who can rake at AAA, but he's really not that great, and he's never going to make a huge name for himself in the majors. So I see Loperfido as an intriguing option, as he can play outfield and first base, and if he starts out hot enough in the minors and Singleton struggles, I think Loperfido could be one of the first ones to get a call to the major leagues and fight for one of those roster spots and stay on the Astros roster from early in the season or mid-season throughout the end of the year and make an impact on the Astros and make a name for himself. Also, Loperfido is a left-handed hitter, something Houston could severely use as an extra left-handed bat because there's never enough lefties in the league. Next, we have outfielder Jacob Melton. He will begin the season in the minor leagues for sure. He's 23, as he was drafted as an early round pick of the Astros back in 2022. He made it to AA, only had less than 100 at-bats so far, and he's a left-handed hitter who probably won't make the majors if things progress well until 2025, but he's a name to watch in the Astros system because he received a spring training invite. It makes him a guy the Astros think of, which makes him a name to watch. Fielder Will Wagner is one of the two final names I have on my watch list. Yes, for those of you who may be wondering if you don't already know who he is, he's the son of former Astros great Billy Wagner, the closer. Will is 25 years old, and he hit .337 in 65 minor league games last year. He battled some injuries, so that impacted why he only played 65 games. But I'm looking forward to seeing him in spring training, seeing what he can do. He's a utility infielder. He's played second, short, and third mostly throughout his minor league career. And finally, we get to Spencer Arrighetti, a 24-year-old right-handed starting pitcher. He's known to be the Astros' top pitching prospect in their system. I do not anticipate he makes the team out of spring training, though as J.P. France, Brandon Bielak, and Ronel Blanco, guys who made numerous starts in 2023 due to injury, if Arrighetti stays ready, along with has a hot start to the season, and he continues to develop, I see him, Arrighetti, making his MLB debut in 2024 at some point during the season. The last thing I want to talk about in this video are the questions in the Astros bullpen. I see things with the 26-man roster. They're going to carry 13 pitchers, which means they'll have 8 relief pitchers. My list of guys to be locks, as long as they're healthy coming out of spring and they don't just fall flat on their face. And those names are as followed. Josh Hader, number 1. Ryan Presley, number 2. Brian Abreu, number 3. J.P. France, number 4. Rafael Montero, number 5. And Bennett Sousa, number 6, the left-hander who had a nice impact in September last year, but he was not eligible for the postseason roster, unfortunately for the Astros, because they could have used him out of the bullpen. That being said, that's 6 bullpen spots I have as locks 100% for the season, barring injury, knock on wood. So that leaves 2 openings in the bullpen, and some of the following names that I'm going to mention here in a minute have track records vying for those spots that are unproven to semi-proven to, well, we'll see what they're made of in spring training because they're on the 40-man roster. And one of those names is Forrest Whitley. Now, I don't have high hopes for Whitley anymore. He should have made his debut a long time ago, but he had a suspension, a ton of injuries, and a bunch of bad minor league performances. But Forrest Whitley is making a transition from starter to reliever, so he's on my list as one of the guys that has a 40-man roster spot and has a spring training invite. So Whitley was drafted so long ago, I don't know what to make of it, but Forrest Whitley is on my list of one of the guys vying for the 2 open bullpen spots. So you have number 1, Forrest Whitley, in no order, shape, or fashion of who I think has odds to get these bullpen spots, but these are just names vying for them. So number 1, Forrest Whitley vying for a spot. Number 2, Parker Mushinski. Number 3, Seth Martinez. Number 4, Sean Dubin. Number 5, Dylan Coleman, one of the additions in the offseason outside of the organization. Number 6, Ronel Blanco. And number 7, Brandon Belak. Those are the 7 guys I believe have the best chances to get one of these roster spots coming out of spring training, and there could be 1 or 2 other random names thrown in there. They may sign a minor league guy who also gets a spring training invite, but I believe it's going to be 2 of those 7 who get the final roster spots, and they're vying for those spots, so I think it's going to be an interesting battle, and probably the most significant thing I'm keeping my eyes on for spring training, who wins the battle of the final 2 spots, which I have up for grabs. Now, I could be wrong, and it could only be 1 spot, and say Ronel Blanco, who the Astros are high on, already has one of those spots, but I don't think it's a lock, at least in my mind, that Blanco has a spot locked down. With all of that information I gave you being said, this will wrap up my Astros offseason review video. Thank you all for watching, and if you aren't already, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see all of you in my next video.